Welcome to this week's video. Once again, I'm Pastor Dave, and it's great to be with you here. Well, it's Christmas week, so obviously I want to talk about Christmas, the promises of Christmas. Why do we have Christmas? Why did Jesus have to leave heaven and come to earth? Aren't the birth, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ the most important times and dates in human history? I enjoy Christmas. I enjoy everything about Christmas. I enjoy the childlike wonder that takes place this time of year. But when I think about it, why did Jesus come as a baby? This is God we're talking about. He could have come in power and majesty. He could have been anything he wanted to be, but yet he was born as a baby who needed to be cared for, who needed to be taken care of. And when you think about this, he didn't come in that power and might. He didn't come in that majesty. He came in a state of frailty, which means Jesus was vulnerable. And when you think about King Herod, when you read in the scriptures, a time when King Herod heard about the king of the Jews and he was threatened by that, so he commanded that all babies in Bethlehem, 2 years old or younger, be put to death. History tells us about 8 baby boys were killed. But why didn't God intervene then? Why didn't God protect Jesus? Why didn't angels come down and surround him? God did protect Jesus, but he did it by telling Joseph to take his family and flee to Egypt. Why flee? Since when does God flee from anything? Again, Jesus was being vulnerable. He can relate to your weaknesses. He can relate to how frail we are. He can relate when we're in want and need. That's who he was for a period of time. Now, before creation even began, God had a plan for redemption. And the Father turned to the Son and said, this is what your ministry will be. This is what you will do when you will leave heaven and go to earth. The whole purpose of Christmas is to reconcile humanity back to God. Without Christmas, we can't have Easter. Without Easter, the death of Christ, we can't have the resurrection. Without the resurrection, we can't have any hope. So 700 years before Christmas, that first Christmas, Isaiah spoke the words. In Isaiah chapter 61, we're told what the ministry of Jesus was. And I get this picture because in Luke, in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 4, Jesus comes into a synagogue in Nazareth, which is the city he was raised in. Once the family returned from Egypt, they went to Nazareth up in the Galilee, the northern part of Israel. And now as a man, he returned there. On the Sabbath, he went in and he took the scroll of Isaiah and he began to read from Isaiah 61. And as he read the first 2 verses, he actually cut off reading in the middle of the second verse. That he handed the scroll back to the attendant. And the attendant took the scroll and Jesus sat. And he told those in the synagogue in this small little village of Nazareth that today these prophecies spoken 700 years before he was born have been fulfilled before your eyes. Isaiah 61, Luke 4. This is what Jesus was to preach. Good news to the poor. This was his ministry. When he left heaven and came to earth to have Christmas, he was to preach good news to the poor. Well, who's poor? Do you think about people who are homeless or hungry? See, the poor, the spiritually poor, those who don't understand. He was to bind up the brokenhearted. Those who are hurting, he was to help. He was to restore. Are you brokenhearted over anything? He was to proclaim liberty to the captives, setting those free from bondage. Have you ever been in bondage to anything? You can be set free from that. He was to set the prisoners free from darkness. Now really, folks, all darkness is ignorance of knowing and understanding how much God loves you. Jesus was to preach those things. He was to comfort the weak and to comfort those who mourn. He was to deal with those who were ignorant of the truth. He was to feed his flock. He was to guide them with counsel. See, we were told that Jesus came down to earth to be a priest and a shepherd. The promises of Christmas, I don't want anybody to miss the promises that Jesus preached. You can have peace, you can have hope, you can have freedom. You can be broken free from any kind of bondage that you have. You can rejoice. You can understand what the purpose of Christmas was. Why did Jesus leave heaven and come down to earth? Why was he born as a baby? Why was his life threatened and his family had to flee to another nation? And why was he raised in a little village of obscurity? And when he read the scroll of Isaiah, why were his words rejected? See, the promises of Christmas is for all. And as we celebrate Christmas this week, I just wish for everyone to understand the promises and to receive the promises, the gift that Jesus has for you. Some may think that Christmas is not a religious holiday. And that's heartbreaking because you're missing out on the greatest gift you could ever have. Well, I just wanted to kind of share with you this week a few moments of what Christmas is really about. And I really want you to ponder. Why did Jesus come as a baby? Why did he leave earth and leave heaven and come to earth? See, he had to do these things to reconcile you and to reconcile me and everyone else in the world back to a holy, loving, merciful, caring God. Well, Merry Christmas to you all. I look forward to seeing you again next week with next week's video. So between now and then, I hope you glorify God. If you have any questions or have any more comments or want to see more about myself or the ministry that we have, Interpreting the Times, you can find it on the website. If you Google it, it's all one word, interpretingthetimes.com. We do our best to keep you posted on articles and what's going on in the world and give you a biblical perspective on how you can handle what's happening in the world. We want to keep you up to date so you know the day and the time that you live in and know what to do. So that's what we're all about. And again, as we're talking about Christmas, as the whole world is about to celebrate Christmas, as churches around the globe will be reading from Luke chapter 2 and various other scriptures, I want you to understand the promises that are there. And just think about the questions I asked you. Why did he leave heaven and come to earth? Why as a baby? Why did he make himself so vulnerable? What was his commission? What was his purpose? And what was the result of that? Anyhow, we're out of time for this week, so God bless you. Have a wonderful Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Between now and next time we get together, I pray everything you do is for the glory of God. Merry Christmas.